So now I'll come back and say what I said. Economics, I want you to understand a few things. That why we study economics in the first place. We have to have some methods of analysis. That's very important. So that is really important to keep in mind. So we're going to define economics. What is economics? Why we study economics in the first place? Is it science? Most of people think economics is science, but it's not exact science. It's not like math or physics. It's not like 1 + 1 = 2. We'll see there is some issues, and we'll explain why is that. We're going to talk about micro versus macroeconomics. What is the difference between these two branches of economics? And I will talk about alternative economics. There is other heterodox economics, means different than we're going to study. We're going to study orthodox economy here, the things that established from 1776, from Adam Smith, the first person start all this stuff. He established all this system we are working with in economics till today. That's orthodox economics. There are people are asking questions, is it right? Which is like example of all this stuff. It's Karl Marx. Marx is an example of alternative economics. He does not believe in all this stuff we're going to talk about. He thinks that this is not, he understands what we are talking about, but he says that's not all 100% true. There is a Keynesian models also that believes differently from what we had in free market system. Okay, so that's things that, then we're going to talk about the power of economic analysis. It's very powerful when you use economic analysis in the right way, and help reach some really good decisions. And in economics, there is 3 very important questions that we have to ask. We are trying to answer. Every time we have economic question, we have to figure out, we have 3 important questions, and we have, at the end, you will find 2 opposite answers. Why we have 2 opposite answers? Because as I mentioned, each society values something different. This is very important. The 2 opposite is based on 2 schools of thoughts. There is English, British school of thought, and you have French economic of thought. So this one, I'm going to go ahead a little bit and tell you, this is based on self-interest. Everybody is looking for their self-interest. Individualism. I want to make profit. I want to be happy. It's all about me. The French thought, which is Rousseau, which is called General Will school of thought, means, yes, you are looking for your interest. I'm looking for my interest. But we have to have some third party that has to look for the interest of the society as a whole. That's we have to agree on something, that we have somebody in the top. That's why we have a government. We need somebody in the top that looks at the society as a whole. What is good for society? Maybe what is good for you is not good for society. Okay? You might make profit, but you're destroying the nature. Like, for example, you might make profit building a plant for steel in my neighborhood, but you're making profit. It's good for you, but it's not good for the neighborhood. We need some authority or general will. Some people will represent the general will. We're going to talk about that later in the future. But we're not going to spend so much time only in Adam Smith. British economics means a self-interest. Everybody's looking for their self-interest. And all this analysis is based on that self-interest. Okay, so let's go back. So then we have economic assumption. We make some assumptions about people. And then every time I do the analysis, even if I don't say that, I will keep in mind these assumptions. I'm going to I'll ask you later, what does an assumption mean? And then we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about what is the positive versus normative economics. We talk about division of labor, why we have lawyers today, teachers, we have nurses, we have everybody is specializing in something. Why? What is the idea behind all this? How this idea came? Now, most of the time, and for different reasons, you will see people are against trade. And the most recent issue is trade between China and US. Is the trade bad for US or good? In economics, 100% or not 100%, 99.9% of economists believe that trade is good. Why? We're going to talk about what's called comparative advantage versus absolute advantage. And all of us believe in this theory. Even if you didn't study economics, you use this theory in everyday based decision making. And then we're going to talk about all this stuff in chapter 1. Okay, so this is like what helps you make all this, as I mentioned, you have these tools that helps you make decisions in the future. So now, what is economics? And is a very important field. First time, I'm just going to say this is a very interesting field. Why? It's a dynamic subject. It's not something static. It's not something that is fixed. Every time you have a new issue, like if you look back 15 years or 20 years ago, we have issues that are dominating society. Today, I have a different issue. Today was race, income inequality. Next year, 2 years from now, might be artificial intelligence. How does it affect our lives? That's always changing. It's always new things coming on. So it is very important. It's not boring subject at all. It's not something you learn and you move on. You have to keep all the time updating yourself. And it's applied throughout society. You cannot have business without understanding the economic side of the business. You cannot have a finance and a government. You cannot work in the government. Government have so much economists working in the government. Just the Bureau of Labor and Statistics has so much economists working with them. It is a really good field to study. So it cannot understand the crime in a neighborhood without looking at the business side or economic side of it. Education, family, you want to get married, you want to have kids, you always think, okay, how that will affect me as a person, economically, health, everything. You go to war, everything has an economic side. So you cannot escape the economics in your life. You need a decision. You want to buy a house or you rent. That's the decision you want to make. You want to buy a car or you lease a car. That's another decision you have to make. So you want to go to school. Should I go to school or not? What classes I have to take? What major I have to? All this stuff has to bring back to the very interesting question, how that will affect me economically. That's what I want you to ask yourself. It is always things that you're going to do have cost. Now, also it helps you as a citizen to make better decision. You understand the issue. I'm going to vote. I want to know who is going to represent my interest. You cannot vote for somebody who's not representing your interest. If you understand the issues, nobody will play games with you. Say, oh, okay, stop. You are going off the road. This is my interest. This is what I'm looking for. As a citizen, I understand the issues. And professionally, if you are good, if you have, I'm telling you, if you measure in economics and you're a little bit good at math and you measure in economics, you will have a great job. You just go look. There is no organizations that does not have an economist involved. A lot. Every government, private sectors, anything. I said, and economics is so much. There is so much to study. This is not one branch. There is different things you can study in economics. It's just a lot of stuff. So that is very good. The question. So as a citizen, believe it or not, you have to make political, have a political problems, but it has economic aspect of it. So I have to look at like people talk about balancing the budget, fighting over tax structure, who's going to pay how much tax, welfare reform. So should we have a free healthcare, social security, trade, but most of the time environment. So that's a lot of issues that you have to understand and has to have economic aspect of it. It's good. Sometimes you have a solution for a problem. Sometimes it's good to have a solution, but when you look at the economics, it's not feasible. So you can think about this. You come up with solution for a disease, like one person is sick with cancer. One person. What is it? If I have to spend billions of dollars to cure this person, is it worth it? Well, it's nice to save somebody's life. You see, now you are finding your reasoning against your morals. I'm not going to spend billions of dollars to cure 10 people or 15 people. No, it's just too much money. It's not worth it. It's good to save somebody's life. It's a good to life is a secret, is like it's given from God. If we can save somebody's life, it's good. But at the other side of the equation, what I have to give up to do this? If I give up $1 billion, means I have to take it from somewhere else to do this research to save a person. So it is not worth doing that. So yeah, it is evil. It is rough, but that's reality. That's the problem. You have to deal with options that you have. So. And anytime you select somebody for office, you have to be able to negotiate in your behalf. You have to understand the issues. You have to do his role, and the way he can do it effectively if he understands the economics. Okay, so we're going to professional, which is just like first, as a person, you will have logical way of thinking. That's a good thing. It's not just used for economics. You can use it for all your daily life decision making. But if you work in a business world, when you get in discussion with your manager, you will see there are different questions that you have to ask to understand what's going on. how to present yourself perfectly, and that helps you as a person. You're buying or selling something, you have to make a decision. Just like, for example, I'm trying to rent or buy a house. I'm not just going to randomly select one of them. I have to go through the process of which one is most beneficial to me. Is it worth buying a house? If the houses are so expensive, it's not worth buying it. I better rent today and wait till the market comes down, for example, and buy my house. So a lot of things that we're going to talk about. As a professional person, you will be able to make the decisions. You have to invest in 2 projects, for example. So, for example, I'm giving you, somebody comes to you and says, okay, I have 2 projects, A and B. I want you to invest $100 here and $100 or 100. You have $100. You have to choose a project A or B. And at the end of the project, you will get 110. Which one you're going to select? That's not enough to decide. The second question I will have to ask, how long is this project will go for? If it's 1 year versus 2 years, if it's 2 years versus 3 years. So this is other questions you have to ask. Now you're looking at the time and all that stuff. As economists, you're thinking about the value of money over time. And time value of money is very important. $1 today is not the same as $1 10 years from now. That's not the same thing. You have to keep this in mind as well. So we're going to talk about all this stuff, but I'm just saying. So what are we going to achieve? What is the goal of economics? Why we have to do all this stuff? This is very important. Economic growth. We have to grow the economy. Why? The economic growth, because we have population and we have a pie. Imagine in your family, you are just getting married. You buy a pizza, you can divide it with your husband or your wife in half, or your partner. But if you have another kid, you're not going to divide it in half. You have to make the pie bigger so you can divide it on 3. That's the same things for the economy. It's very important to understand the population is growing. We have to grow the economy so everybody will have enough food and shelter. Otherwise, we get to the point that we'll have a mess. Actually, there is an economist called Malthus. It was like in, I think it's 1700 or 1800. He's expecting that because of the economy is growing slowly and the population is growing fast, we get to the point where we have a mess because we will not have enough food. Obviously, he was wrong, because we didn't have a mess because we figured out how to grow the economy faster than the population. So many people were expecting in the old days that because of the economy, the pie is getting bigger, but it's not as fast as the population. So we get to the point we will not have enough food for everybody. So we have to figure out how to slow the population growth. That's why we have the limit the population. We have less kids in the family and all that stuff. China came up with the policy of 1 kid per family. So they don't have so much population. If we cannot grow the economy, we have to slow the growth of the population. But we are good as humans to invent new ways of doing. We grow the economy. So the economy grows fast. The pie is getting bigger. The issue now today is not because the pie is not getting bigger. The economy in the US is growing, but the problem is how we divide the pie. That's the question. That's called income inequality. Who gets the most big share of the pie? We want people have a job. So if we are trying to study economics, how we can help people have a job. In economic efficiency, how we can do things better. We always better. I give you example of shoes. First, people didn't have shoes. Somebody thought about having shoes, and now the shoes are getting better and better. Transportation is a good example. In the old days, people walked. Then somebody decided to invent a bike or invite a car. Then somebody invented the airplanes. So we are trying to figure out the way we can make things better, efficient. Efficiency means we have to have the maximum output possible with the same resources. So we have inputs and outputs. So we have 1 hour work. You want to get as much as possible out of it. So you can imagine how the economy grow because of, like in old days, if you want to copy something, you have to write it down. So you have 1 page, you want 50 pages copies. You just have to write this page 50 times by hand. Somebody thought about creating a printer. All right, so now in 1 minute, you can print 50 times, 100 times the same pages instead of writing it again. So that's how the economy grows and become more efficient. Figure in a better way using technology to do things. Price stability. We don't want to have price goes up and down like crazy. We have to figure out how we can keep the price either going stable. Imagine the price goes up. Like if you want to look at the example, look at Venezuela, for example. Look at other countries where the price go crazy. So it's very, when the prices are going up and down like this, sometimes they go up, sometimes they, if you, as a business person, you want to plan for the future, well, you don't know how to plan because the prices are not stable. I want to have a budget for next 5 years. If the prices are not stable, I cannot make my plans for the future. So the economy is like we're using tools which called monetary policy to help us stabilize the prices. Will go. People have choices. When you go to buy a phone, you have zillion, not zillion, but at least you have more than one choice. You can buy iPhone, you can buy Samsung, you can buy Nokia, you can buy. That's the economy gives you freedom to choose. You want to buy sneakers, you can buy Adidas, you can buy Nike, you can buy New Balance. That's because of freedom that we have in economics. People have competitors, they come up with different options. There is, you want to buy soda, you can buy Coke, you can buy Pepsi. Always you have a choice. Now, we have to have some equality in distribution of income. We don't want, so here's, it does not mean, we're talking about distribution of income. We don't want anybody to be the same. We don't want everybody to have the same shirt. We don't want everybody to have the same sneakers, but at least you have sneakers. Somebody will have sneakers that is cost 500, but it does not make sense if you buy sneakers for 500 and you have your neighbor doesn't have any shoes whatsoever. We want to, I don't want you to give this person a pair of shoes that is worth 500, but maybe $10. He has shoes. So what does that mean? It's okay to live in society where we have people with different wealth, but we cannot allow to live in society where we have people living under the bridge, for example, homeless. You cannot live in society where you have children and hungry. You cannot live in that society. Why? Because if you have that, what you will have, you will not have security. When you have so much people are hungry, what do you think will happen? We'll have riots in the streets. You have people angry with the system, and that's what will bring it down. So we have to keep this in mind. So if we have a stable society, we have to grow the economy, people have jobs, efficient, we have stable prices, we have freedom to choose, and everybody has the minimum. I'm not going to say, I'm not like socialist or Marxist to say everybody has to have the same car, same house, same thing. No, I'm okay with people making millions of dollars, but I'm not okay if somebody is living in poverty. And there are a lot of things that does not make sense in today's economic system. Can you imagine people making $40 million a year? 40 million. What these people do to be valued at $40 million a year? Soccer player, ask yourself, just ask yourself, watching somebody playing soccer and makes $40 million a year for basketball or football or whatever sport it is, and he gets paid $40 million a year. What is the value for society? What he's adding to society? As I will give you a chance to respond if you have questions. Some people will disagree with me, but for me, I don't see, like, somebody is in a big corporation, the CEO makes 30 million, and you have somebody working in a store and makes $10 an hour. It does not make any sense whatsoever. That's not, you can, in US, can you believe this? In the average, the CEO makes in one day. So you have CEO works one day, makes enough that a worker makes in a whole year. What does that mean? A worker in a company has to work 365 days to get what is equivalent to 1 day work of CEO. Really? Is that society? And that's really crazy. You have to work 1 day as CEO, and somebody else has to work for 365 days to make the same amount of money. That's unbelievable. But I'm not saying that CEO has to be paid as the same as everybody else, but this gap in wages are creating a system that people are really angry. That's why people, and so I will tell you something, you know, that's happened in Germany before the World War II. And always I say this, people think I'm crazy. Today's economy feels exactly the same as Germany in early 1930. People in Germany were so angry because of the economic suffrages and suffrages, and everything is expensive. They elected Hitler. I'm not making comparisons with anybody. I'm just saying, when you are angry as a person, the first things you are trying to do, you blame somebody else. You're not thinking about the issue is not somebody coming from another country. The issue is that income inequality. That's the big problem. There is a wealth, there is money, but the way is distributed, not because somebody is cleaning the houses, not somebody is working in farms. That's not, he's not taking your jobs. You might disagree with me, and you get a chance to talk about this if you want, but just my thinking, I may be wrong, but I just say we are focusing on wrong issues when people trying to divert your attention to a side issue. This is a side issue. Immigration is, yes, we want to protect our borders, we want to do all this stuff, but the real issue is that we have income inequality. And then I want you to go look how much CEOs get paid in the companies. Like, look at Dunkin' Donut, look at the Walmart, look at the McDonald's. You see people in the bottom get paid the minimum wage, and the people in the top make so much money, and people who own assets today make so much money. You own houses, and in the old days in US, they say if you work hard, you get ahead. How many people you know today that job lost value? You work, you barely pay bills. You will never, like in old days, people get jobs, they work hard, one job is enough. You can own a house, you can send your kids to college, you can do all this stuff. Today, one job will not get you all this stuff. You will be stuck in the bottom. It's very hard to, the system is not giving you a chance to move up. It is hard to do it today. I'm not saying is it bad or good. I'm just saying it's still, US is the best country in the world. I'm not arguing with that. But in the old days, work hard, you have dreams, American dream. Today, just look around you, where you grew up, where you live, see how many people work 1, 2, 3 jobs to barely survive, to make ends meet. That's the issue today. So it means people, they don't believe. So that's why people looking for cutting corners. When the job does not make it for you easy to live, you're trying to figure out how to cut corners to get ahead. Okay, and this has a lot to do with education system. We're going to talk about that later, how the education system works. If we cannot survive without having adequate education, if there is inequality in education between neighborhoods in US, towns, from one town to another, you will have a different system. Education in Cambridge is not the same as education in Boston. And Newton and Brookline is not the same as Stoughton or other countries. You have a different system. And the way it is paid in US, the system works in different ways. The value of the house determines the value of education, because it's the education system is financed by using like a real estate tax. Each neighborhood or each town collect taxes from houses and pay for it. It means if you live in a poor neighborhood, means the houses are worth less, means the taxes are less. You don't have enough money to pay for police officers, you don't have enough money to pay for teachers, means you have less, it's not less qualified, but you won't have everything that's to make education a good quality education. But if you live in a neighborhood where houses are expensive, taxes are high, the town have money to spend, and they will have, that's why, for example, Cambridge have a very high cost of living, because the housing market is expensive there. At the same time, they have good education. So that's the thing. Now, let's go back, start over again. I'm going to talk about economics. So economics means, it came from a Greek word that means economos, means somebody who manages, the one who manages the household. So managing your household, you have to make decisions. You have to know who is going to work. When you have a check at the end of the week, you have to know how to spend it, how much like stuff you're gonna buy. So that's, you are managing your household. That's, you have to make all decisions. Means you have your income, your wealth, or your resources are limited, and you have to make a decision how you're gonna spend it. So as a person or as an individual, you have to make these decisions. Society as a whole or as a family have to make the same things. We have limited resources as well. We have to allocate them, so we have to produce goods and services. We cannot produce everything we want because we have limited labor, we have limited machines, we have a limited time. So we have to figure out as society how we're going to allocate our resources. So that's why we have economy in the first place. People have to make choices, to make decisions. So we want to understand how people make that decisions. That's the goal. So we want to understand how people. So the definition of economics is the study of how society, people allocate their limited resources to satisfy their unlimited ones. So there are two things that are very important here. You have to remember. Anytime you talk about economics, you talk about limited resources, and you have unlimited ones. You want one car, two cars, three cars. You want one house, two houses, three houses. You want two pair of shoes, 10 pair of shoes. You want 10 shoes. The problem is your income is limited. Your resources are limited. That's the constraint. Every time you make a decision, you are faced with this issue. I have unlimited wants, and I have limited income. So I have to choose. My kids want to go to a swimming pool. My kids want to go to the beach. My kids want to have iPads, iPhones at home. I don't have money for all this stuff. So then I have to make choices to satisfy which one. So it means I have to my options, or I will list of things I want to buy. I have to put them in order from the most important all the way down. I need this, and then I will look at my resources and I will select the ones that I can buy. I cannot buy everything. My kids used to know mom does not or dad doesn't have enough money. I'm going to buy you this today, but you have to wait for the other stuff till next month or next check. So we have to make choices, and the economics is very important. We want to understand how people make these choices. It is very hard things to understand. What makes you select one option versus another? Each one of you will have, if I asked you today, I will have different answers. If I say you have $1 and you want to the market, okay? So I say I give each one of you $1, and then you go to the market. All fruits are $1. The apple, oranges, bananas, all stuff. Each one of you will buy a different thing. You will not buy the same item. Why? Because you're humans. We are different. The way we think, the way we think about our satisfaction is different. So we will not. That's what makes all this stuff hard to understand, is that we cannot understand one person means you understand everybody else. You have to understand a group of people. You have to put them in groups. This group of people make choices this way. This group of people make choices this way. So it is very complex, and a lot of things get involved in decision making. Okay. So remember, this is the formal definition of economics. This is, we want to study how society and people, either as a society, as a group of people, as unit, or as a family, as unit, or as a person, as one individual. You have to decide how to allocate your limited resources to satisfy unlimited wants. The question that's the study of how people make choices. So the question that most of people don't understand, want versus needs. That's different. We didn't say your needs are limited. You need, if you don't have shoes, you need a pair of shoes. That's a need. You might have shoes, but you want a different size or a different style. It's not when you want something, you don't have it. It does not mean that you don't have it. It's just makes you happier to buy more stuff. You have one car. Why do you have to buy? You don't need a car, but you end up buying a second car because it makes you happier to have one SUV and one sedan. It's not you don't have transportation, you do, but it's just the wants. The houses, same thing. You have one house, believe it or not. So people think that, oh, look at this person, if I just have one house. No. You have one house, you want to buy another one. You have one car, you have shoes, you want more shoes. You have a t-shirt, you want more t-shirts. You want to make statement about yourself. That's what is wants. It's more pleasure. A human being have unlimited pleasure. Is just giving them more. It's like drugs, more. And that's what makes people like, when you hear somebody is making $1 million, say, oh, I wish I can make just 500. It's enough for me. No, it's not enough. Believe me, when you get 500, other stuff will appear. You want to have a house in France, you want to have a house in Brazil, you want to have, so that's how people behave. So don't blame somebody having too much stuff. That's the way you will behave. That's human nature. That's how we will behave. So they convince us that our pleasure is unlimited. Okay, so just remember, we have two things in common. Our wants are unlimited and our resources are limited. So until we die, that's how we behave as humans. But some people think that rich people, they don't face this issue. They do. Believe it or not, the most valuable things that is limited for everyone is time. Even if you have a lot of money, you cannot be in two different places at the same time. You have money to buy everything, but the time is valuable and you cannot be in two places. So as a person, even if you are rich, assuming that you have all this money, you will still have limited resources. So resources definitions, we call them inputs. Sometimes that's things we use to produce goods and services. So you have inputs, you put them in the production process, you come up with output. That we call them resources. Every time you want to produce something, you need inputs, you need resources. So if you want to produce shoes, you need workers, you need machines, you need leather, you need nails, you need all this stuff. That we call them resources. Sometimes it's just money. You want to buy bread, you need money to buy bread. That's input. So in each product has input to be produced. So all the things we use to produce goods and services that satisfy people's wants, we call them resources. Wants, it's a pleasure, is not need. Be careful. We don't study needs in the economy. We study wants. Every time I'm talking about people, decision making, I'm talking about how they can maximize their pleasure. We're talking about wants. We are assuming that people want it's unlimited. Give them more, 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 all till we die. You will never satisfy 100% pleasure of a human being. That's who we behave. Okay, so that's who we are as human beings. Okay, so the first thing you keep in mind, if you have to remember anything so far, the reason we are studying economics is because of this issue. As human being, we have unlimited wants and we have limited resources. What does that mean? It means that we have to look at to make trade-offs. We have to make choices. You cannot have everything, so it means I have to make decisions. That's economics. And we want to understand how people, when you understand how people make that choices, you can make assumptions, you can make guesses for the future. Okay, that will help us make decisions. So if you look at this circle that I have here in green, that's your unsatisfied wants. The whole thing is your wants. If you look at everything included, but as a human being, because of your limited resources, you have to select one portion of all this circle. It's called satisfied wants, and then the rest will not be satisfied. So that's, and you live with it. And the more you have wealth, the bigger your satisfied wants. But you will never get to the 100% satisfaction because you have time strength. You cannot have enough time to be everywhere, even if you have money. Okay, so the white circle depends on your wealth or your income. And getting bigger, bigger, bigger. So my satisfied wants, maybe it's like small, like this, not all that big. I have a lot of things I want to do, but income is constraint for me. Okay, so that's the problem. Okay, so this issue, when you're talking about economics, it does not matter if you talk about society or family, or everybody has the same issue. If you say business is the same thing. Nations face the same issue. Apple company, they can produce, Charles, well, you left. Okay, I'm just going to keep track of people are living right now. So if you are a person or a business, you always have the same thing. Company has to produce, like Apple, for example, can produce either iPhone or iPad, for example. If they produce Apple, they can not produce more of each one of them. If they produce more apples, they have to reduce the production of iPad or other products that they have, because they have a number of workers. They have a number of materials they can use. They don't have everything. Imagine that you have a piece of land as a farmer, for example. You have this is your piece of land. So you can produce two vegetables. It could be carrots or potatoes, but you cannot increase both of them because your land is limited. Either if you increase potato, you have to take off carrots. If you produce more carrots, so you have to deal with this. That depends of what you want to satisfy. Do you need more carrots or more potatoes? That's the question we have to ask later. So we want to study choices. So it is economic analysis is way of thinking. Just remember, I want you to keep in mind. It's just you have to have in mind a process of thinking. You keep this in mind that every time I'm trying to understand the issue, the first things I have to think about is that economy is how people make choices. Why? Because they have unlimited wants and they have limited resources. Okay, So this is summarize all the stuff I said so far. It came from John Maynard Keynes. That is a British economist who was famous in 1930s when he published his book. And then we're going to talk about that in the chapter, like chapter 9, I think. We'll talk about his theory. But the more important that you have to understand is not furnished a body of settled conclusion. It is not something is settled, is written in stone. It is not like I have an issue, I'll just go take this tool. It's like I'm fixing my car. I open like a bolt or something. I have numbers. No, you have to understand the issue and you have to figure out what is going on. And then you have to think for yourself. Nobody will tell you how to do that. But you have to keep in mind some assumptions and the process when you're doing that. So economics is not written in stones. It's not like it's done deal. It's not like math or something. It's a process, not the outcome that matters in all this stuff. Okay, so every time you're trying to solve economic problem, you have to ask, like, for example, studying how much you're going to study. Choosing your course. It's not like randomly select courses. You want to know where you're going 5 years from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, what I want to be in the future. So you define the problem, you study it, you figure out the solution based on your understanding of the issue. The same things for a government. Anytime you're trying to make a decision, should we encourage or discourage immigration? That depends on what we're going to achieve. We do want more people coming in the US, or we don't want more people coming to the US. It's not like based on feeling or gut, or no. We will look at the economy. Do we need more people to work in our economy or not? That's the way you make a decision. What is our values? Okay, that's every step of the way you have to think about these questions as economists. So it gives you powerful, it's very powerful method to you, at least you are having some sense of logic to reach informed conclusion. So you're trying to take our, so what does that mean in all this? Sometimes we have like hidden biases. Many people if you don't follow the process, you might let your emotion take over. And that's the riskiest part to do. It's like you are gambling. If you are trying to use your emotion in decision making, you might end up making a really bad decision. When you are following the process, you're taking off the emotion in your decision making. You're trying to be neutral as much as possible. That will help you get to informed conclusion. Okay, so here's a way I want you to think. Every time, I don't want you to go through this process, but every time you have a major decision making or try to work in a business world, you have to think about the steps. The first thing is understanding the issue. Don't let people tell you what the issue is. It's up to you to find out what is the problem. You have to do some research, find out what is the problem. You define the problem. If you don't define the problem in correct way, you might end up solving the wrong issue. So I have to understand, look at the different perspective. What is the problem here? Now we look how to solve the issue. Is there anybody? Means I have to add a value for when I come up with solution, means I have to add value to people. I'm going to give you an example in a few seconds. So first, understanding the issue, how to solve it. Maybe I will look at the odds. There are some solutions existed already. I have to understand them and how I can come up with the better solution. Maybe there is no solution. I will come up with new solution. Okay. Is there a different way of solving the problem? It's not like one way of solving the problem. You might have 3 ways, 4 ways to solve the problem. You always have more than one way to solve the problem. When somebody says yes, this is the only way to solve the problem, that's not true. Because the problem is he does not understand there is other solutions. No, always you have more than one alternative. Then you look at every solution that you have to do some analysis. How much it cost me and what is the benefit? I have to compare cost and benefit. I cannot spend $100 to get $90. I cannot spend $100 to produce a good and sell it for 90. It does not make sense to me. It costs me 100. If I have to only produce this product, if it gives me at least 100, at least I will cover my cost. Okay, that's cost benefit analysis. You look at the cost, you look at the benefit, and if the cost is less than the benefit, it's worth considering. I'm not saying this is the solution. You might have a different solutions that have the same thing, cost less than the benefit. So I only eliminate the solutions that have benefit less than the cost. Okay, and a good example, I say, I cannot spend $100 to produce a good and sell it for 90. It is just against the human nature, because you're trying to make profit. That's why you are in the business. You're not trying to. Okay, now when you are coming, you select one solution, say, okay, I think this is the good solution. That's not the end of the process. The process that, like, I am going to evaluate my solution. I will put it in work. I see if it works. It's okay to change my mind. I come up with solution and it didn't work well. I can change my mind. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes people are just like get biased when they select the option. They just get stuck to it, even if it's not working. It's like gambling. You lose money. You're trying to lose more to win what you lost before. That's wrong. So I look at the solution. If it's working well, it's good. I will try to improve it more. If it's not working, I have to change course. So that's it. And also, every time I make a decision, the one thing I have to keep in mind, how my solution will affect others. I'm trying to change something. The first things you have to understand, a lot of people will be affected, and the resistance will be big. If like trying to change something and people are, it's like changing what is called status quo. I'm trying to come up with new solution. Like healthcare in US is a good example. So if you're trying to come up with a solution for healthcare, you are affecting a lot of people. Well, believe it or not, these people, if are negatively affected, they will be against. Even if it's a good solution, they will resist the change. So you have to understand that, because you have to keep in mind that people. So, for example, I'm just looking and to give you an example of the process of thinking, like Uber, for example. This guy that came up with Uber, he knows there is a problem of the transportation problem. What is the problem? People getting from point A to B. They want to figure out the best way to go from A to B. He's trying. Is there a solution already? Yes, there is a solution. There is cabs, there is buses, there is trains, but he can figure out the better way to do it from A to B. I know there is a solution already to solve this problem, but the solution is not efficient. I can come up with the better way. Look, if you want a cab, you have to call ahead. You have to wait. It could be 2 hours. It could be 3 hours. It could be, depends. You don't know when the cab will get and pick you up. Imagine you're going to the airport. You have to set up appointment the night before, and you have to call in the morning to be sure all is working. Now, he says, I can do this differently. I can just figure out app that links people with cars with the person who needs a ride. You push a button, you look, that's a better solution. You can see where is the person. You know where he gets to your house. You can do, if you know in 15 minutes it will be here. That's a good. And also, because of all this stuff, the cost of running the app is cheaper, because you don't have to, like, normally to have a cab, you have to buy this permission, or it's called medallion. It costs a lot of money. It's in New York, you know, to own a cab in the old days, it costs $1 million to buy that. No, this one, it doesn't have to have all this stuff. You just have to have a car and the app. It's cost. People now get paid, instead of paying $30 to go from one point to another point, you may end up paying $15 or $20. It's cheaper. And they will still keep, now they are trying to make it better. Now they are coming with Uber Eats and all that stuff. And he knows, see, now he knows that this solution is good, but will affect the cab business. It means the cab business will be against this idea. He has to figure out how to deal with these people that will be against this solution. Lyft is a good example. So that's the process. You have to be ahead of, you have to think one step ahead. When you go through this process, you're getting ready to do whatever it takes to save your idea, either from others that are affected, or looking at the cost, how much it costs you, or looking at different problems, looking at other alternatives. And that's what makes Uber very successful. You see, a lot of people are working for Uber now. A lot of people are using Uber. I think almost everybody in this room discussing in my class used Uber at least once. So because it's efficient, very efficient, cost efficient. The way you're using it's easy to use. So every time you come up with solution, when you're trying to do a business idea, you ask yourself, what is the product and how it solved the problem. If you don't solve the problem, nobody will buy the product. People, they don't buy a product because just the sake of buying it. You have to show them what is called the value proposition. What value? How I can make your life better. Always, people ask this question. If you show them there is a value in your product, they will buy it. If they don't see value, nobody will buy it from you. It does not have to be true. The question is that Sometimes you will see a product and say, how this value, the value, it does not mean to be material value. Sometimes it's just emotional value. People may be happier just by consuming your product. So that is not has to be money gain, or sometimes it's just feeling good about yourself. You buy stuff just to feel good about yourself. That's what is wants. Wants, it could be just emotion and tangible satisfaction. When you buy, for example, knife, utility of the knife is cutting, for example, cutting. Sometimes you buy stuff just to feel good about yourself. That's a satisfied want as well. So also sometimes people say, oh, there is a solution already. No, you don't have to think like that. If you, even if there is a solution, you come up with better solution. That's how you think as a business person. Is not because there is a solution, I can make my product better or cheaper. There's two ways you can have a business. Either make the product better, okay, I can have up with better solution like Uber. There is a cab business already, but somebody already. So let me see. Okay, so that's what I want to thank. So here's what I'm gonna do. How much time it is right now? 10. So I'll give you say I'll give you like I'll give you 15-minute break, and I will come back. I want to talk about a little bit, and then I will wrap up this class. Okay, so take a few minutes. If you want to move up a little bit, that's fine with me. And then we come back in 15 minutes to resume our chapter. Okay? Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, do you wanna guys break?
Yes.
Okay.